We are here at the Audioholics Smart House, boots on the ground. We've got something ginormic. It's the RBH Sound 21 SFR Infrasonic subwoofer. That's what we're going to be talking about in today's video. Hey folks, I'm Gene Delasella with Audioholics. We're here in the Audioholics Smart House. You guys know I am a bass nut. That's why we have the Bassaholic room size rating, and we rate subwoofers and we measure them and we give you all the analytics on them. This subwoofer, the 21 SFR, we did an interview with Shane Rich last year about this subwoofer, and I'll link it up in the cards above. This subwoofer changed the Bassaholic room size rating. I had to come up with a new rating called Maximus. Maximus. It's that epic. I had to come up with a new category because this subwoofer has so much infrasonic output. It changes the experience of what you listen to, whether it's music or movies. But before I get into the subjective listening, I want to talk to you guys about the construction of this subwoofer, because it's quite an amazing engineering feat to come up with a subwoofer of this magnitude. And what RBH Sound has done with this is they spent years working on a 21-inch driver. This is a custom driver for them. Now there's versions of this driver you could buy over the shelf, but this one in particular is made for RBH. It's a 21-inch driver. It's carbon fiber. It has a 38mm X-Max, which is about the longest throw in a 21 that I've seen. And the motor structure on it, they originally tried to do a ferrite motor structure, but it was so big and heavy that it was causing structural issues with the basket. They switched to a neodymium magnet structure, which is even more costly. And it's huge. I mean, this driver weighs a good 60 or 70 pounds. It's massive. But beyond the mass of the driver itself and the beautiful construction, as you can see in the images, it's an incredibly linear driver. What RBH has done with this speaker, and how they engineered it, they managed to get a QTS of around 0.7, which is an ideal dampening characteristic of a subwoofer. So it's not underdamped, it's not overdamped. What that translates to is a subwoofer that has extremely low group delay. It gives you a very musical experience. We've spoken about the differences between ported and sealed subs. I've got ported subs in this system, as you guys know. I have the SVTRS system. But when you get a system that has really good output and lots of overhead and a good long throw driver, there's advantages to sealed subs that you don't see with ported subs. If you look at the CEA 2010 output numbers for this subwoofer, and we'll put the table of what we have for the measurements, it looks on paper similar to the 1212 subwoofer that RBH produces. But in reality, this subwoofer has a lot of advantages below the tuning of the 1212 because you have room gain that you don't get with a ported sub. When a ported sub below its tuning frequency is dumped into a room, you're looking at a third or fourth order response, so the bass tapers off pretty quickly below the tuning frequency, whereas with a sealed sub, you don't have a high pass filter on it. It's a more natural roll off and you get advantages of room gain. And as you guys can see in my measurements, when I have the sub on versus off, below 20 Hertz, I have about a 10 dB gain of bass. And I can make this thing flat to 5 Hertz if I wanted. But in my subjective listening, I didn't over boost this subwoofer. I wanted it to be a very natural experience. I wanted to accentuate the response and give gravitas to the experience without being overbearing. So if you look at my frequency response measurements, it's pretty flat down to about 10 Hertz in this room, and it really adds a level of depth that you don't hear when it's turned off. Now, part of the challenge of making a subwoofer with so much motor force is to keep that cabinet stable, because you're talking about a driver that's moving that amount of air with a long throw like that. RBH had to come up with a system that would keep the cabinet on the floor without it bouncing or moving around. And they have a system called GADS, which stands for Granular Acoustic Dampening System. And what this is a dual chamber system, and they put a very dense compound in it. And what that does is it breaks up the back waves of the driver and it dissipates that energy and it keeps the cabinet more stable. This is a patent pending technology that RBH came up with. They use it in the subwoofer. They're using it in some of their active speakers like the SFTR-AXs that we're going to be reviewing as well. And what you get is an extremely inert cabinet. This thing weighs close to 380 pounds you can't move it on your own. This is something you have to move with two people. My version is a prototype. They loaded mine with the mass load prior to shipping it, but they actually have a version now where you get it with granular enclosure stuff. You add in after the fact, so it makes it more manageable to move around. This thing is a beast, and I love the outrigger system they have, the Unrivaled outrigger system with the cool feet that they have on it. This subwoofer is offered in many varieties as well. One thing about RBH Sound is they're a customizable company. They can make a cabinet to your specification, to your size. Very few companies in America can do that. This version is a single 21-inch sealed subwoofer. Now, Brian Hager, my good friend Brian Hager, has a dual 21 because he's clinically insane. So if you want to be clinically insane and you want a dual 21, you could certainly do that. And Brian has done that in his system, and you get about 6 dB more output if you need that, but the cabinet is obviously a lot bigger. They also have a ported version. So if you're in a commercial cinema and you're in a really large room and you need that more output from the ported version, they have a ported version of this system, but it's just a much bigger cabinet, and usually you put that behind a false wall. So there's a lot of different advantages, a lot of different options of how you would implement this system, but the base of it is this incredible 21-inch driver. It's about the best 21-inch subwoofer driver that I've seen on the market, and the amplifier that comes with it, you could do an internal amp or you could do an external amp. I chose the external amp, which is rack mountable, and this amplifier is rated at 4 kilowatts if you have 220 volts. In my system, I have 120 volts. I did the bench test at 120 volts, and I guaranteed that it was over 2.1 kilowatts just in my bench test. So you got the power. You've got, not only do you have a massive motor force with this driver, but you got massive power behind it. And in a sealed box, you can go and you can EQ that bass level up, and you can get that infrasonic bass, and that's exactly what this does. Now, I want to go over my listening results with you, because as you guys know, this system has a lot of subwoofer power without this. I've got the SVTRS speakers up front, which have 4 12s in each subwoofer or in each speaker. And then I've got a 12-12 in the back right corner, and then a compact 12-12 in the back left corner. So I certainly was not in a deficit for subwoofer surface area in the system. But as you saw in my measurement response, below 20 hertz in this room, the bass was tapering off. This subwoofer picks that up, and it gives me the infrasonic, but it also supplements the rest of the system. And in my listening experience, when I turn the sub on and off, what I notice is it actually tightens up the response. And a lot of that is because of the way the dampening is of the sealed system. It actually made the music a little bit more palatable in my listening. I wasn't expecting that, because you think 21-inch sub, you think it's a car audio sub, it's going to be boom. Not the case. This is a very musical sub. I'm not just about blowing doors out or blowing windows out. Yes, this thing could play 120 dB all day long easily, but the musicality of it is what adds dimension to the system. So listening to music like Drake, a song like Fair Trade, you listen to that song, it's got a nice punchy bass, but at the end when Travis Scott kicks in, you hear that really deep bass hitting in. And I've never really noticed how deep that bass was in my system until I added this subwoofer. It added a new dimension to that experience. If you look at Francine 13, a song called Queen Mary, that is a very fun song to listen to. There's a lot of decorrelated information in that song. If you listen in 2-channel, it sounds like you're listening in surround sound if you have a speaker system that's capable of imaging like that. Put this sub in the mix, and when that bass, the doom hits, it hits with authority. And it's so tight, and it's so effortless and so dynamic. It just blows my mind. And as you guys know, I always talk about music. If I can't get a system to sound good with music, game over for me. So I would not have added this subwoofer in my system if it was going to compromise music. But now I know you guys are wondering, well, what does it do for home theater? Well, for home theater is where this subwoofer really shines. Watching movies like Ready Player One, obviously the car chase scene is a classic demo material scene that people use when they're showing off a system. And when you hear, you know, the dinosaur just stomping and then Kong coming in at the end and just, you know, destroying the roads, the infrasonics coming out of that with this subwoofer engaged really immerses you into that material. It makes me feel like I'm in the scene. I forget that I'm even watching a movie. And there's a scene in Ready Player One where they're on this battlefield and they're all charging. There's a lot of infrasonic bass in there that Until I added the subwoofer, I didn't really fully appreciate what I was hearing in the mix. So that was really a fun experience to listen to. Top Gun Maverick, there were scenes in Top Gun Maverick where just, you know, the hypersonic jet was just going off and you hear the roaring of the engines. It's just another visceral part that you're hearing when the subwoofer was added to the mix. But Dune Part 2 was something that was a real treat, both sonically and visually on the Kaleidoscape. And just listening to those scenes where the worm would come in and there was just a bunch of battling going on. The amount of infrasonic bass that was coming out of this subwoofer was unbelievable and undeniable. I never heard any noises or mechanical stress coming out of it. There's, of course, because there's no ports, there's no port chuffing. All you hear is just effortless, clean, tight bass. In fact, this subwoofer has kind of transformed my expectations of what I expect to hear with bass going forward. And I'm slowly moving all the subwoofers of my room into sealed ones. I just replaced a ported one with a sealed one over here. Eventually, my whole room is going to be sealed subwoofers because when you get to this level, the bass you get out of a sealed system that has the output, that has the headroom, that has the extension is just intoxicating. And this subwoofer has really opened my eyes to infrasonics because I never thought I needed to have sub 20 hertz bass until I heard this subwoofer. So just to give you guys an idea, the entry fee to the sub is no small feat. It starts out at $12,000. That includes the 21-inch subwoofer with the outboard amplifier. You can configure it whether you want a dual 21 or you wanted a ported version of it. There's different kind of finishes they could put on it. There's a faceplate that goes on the production unit. You're going to see this with Teo Nikolakis's review unit. He's got the one with the custom faceplate. My unit was a prototype, so mine is not as pretty as the production units. But needless to say, it's not a small enclosure, but at the same time, it's not very deep. A lot of these infrasonic subwoofers have a really large footprint depth-wise. This one's not very deep at all. It's very easy to put on a side of a wall, or it's easy to put behind a false wall. If it was me doing a system from scratch over again, I would probably put 2 of these, 1 in each corner, and then just call it a day. This subwoofer has that much impact on me, on my enjoyment for both music and for listening. And let's not forget the fact that the DSP amplifier has very useful features in it as well. As you can see in the screenshots, it has unlimited PEQ adjustability, it has all pass filters, it has delays, it has phase, it has any kind of adjustable tweakability you want. You could do it in the DSP. And in fact, that's the trick I used in my system, is I had to use an all pass filter to get it to blend in with my ported subs. It's no trivial matter when you have mixed ported and sealed subs. That's why you really need to have the right tools for the right job, as Scotty said from Star Trek.
How many times do I have to tell you the right tool for the right job?
This subwoofer system, the 21SFR with their DSP amplifier, gives you those tools, whether you're integrating for a fully sealed system or a sealed hybrid ported system. You have the flexibility in the DSP to get everything to blend well. So this has just been a great experience. It's been kind of like a ride at Disney for me, having this subwoofer integrated into my system. If you guys are bass heads, I want to hear your comments down below. Do you have infrasonic capability in your system? What are your favorite bass tracks? What are your favorite movies, movie scenes, or music that you like to hear infrasonics of? Give me some comments down below. And if you guys are considering buying an infrasonic subwoofer or a subwoofer at this level, don't forget about our affiliate Dream Media. They are a full authorized RBH dealer. They've installed many of these subs, so they know the full capability of these subs. We appreciate you supporting the channel by using our affiliates. Don't forget about our Patreon channel at patreon.com/Audioholics. We appreciate your support. You get direct access to me if you want to suggest video topics. And until next time, my friends, keep listening.
Go ahead and clap for me, Gene.
The clapper. Clap on.
I love it.
Clap off. It's a big motherfucking grill. Okay, let me put this down.